Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Apologies. Why that's... Can't get rid of scene to get rid of that. Oh, that's a bit annoying. Oh, well. Welcome to episode 100 of Global News. The last one I'll be doing for a while. Appreciate everybody coming. And today's one is going to be one that... the more I looked into this stuff, the more I was like, okay, I don't see how I can cover anything else on this live stream apart from this. And I think, yeah, that if I do it all here, that way I won't need to touch on it too much tomorrow evening's live stream. So, and I figured this would probably be the best way to do it. Sorry, let me just pause this. And this really does make me sick to my stomachs. Now, like I said, I did say I was going to go 2 hours. I don't think I'm going to do that. I'm going to go as long as I need to go for this content because it is so serious. There are so many thoughts running in my head about how to quantify all of this. I have spent a few hours going through quite a few stuff with regards to the Epstein files, but I don't even think we should call it the Epstein files. We should be calling this the biggest cover-up in human history. I do call it the biggest cover-up in human history, and that we haven't even tipped the iceberg when it comes to our knowledge on this, and the fact that there is not so much outrage and anger over this, and that we are only getting drips and drips of this is incredibly infuriating. I've got quite a lot of clips of this, so we're actually going to go from some clips first. I do have an interview that I have not watched yet with Epstein, with Steve Bannon, that we may watch at the end potentially as well. I do have some articles as well. The amount it's not just what's happening in the UK. It's not just what's happening in the US. There are French connections. There is African connections. There are connections to people in positions of power in the Middle East. That is how deep this is. Epstein is just a part of this, a part of all this. It's not just him as a figureman. He's a part of a much more broader network here, I feel. And I'd like to say that this will all get torn down, but no one's going to allow it to get torn down. And there's going to be a lot of people who are simply just going to die away without any accountability whatsoever. So good evening, afternoon / evening. I don't know why I said evening. I guess I'm just used to saying it after doing a second live stream. To Billy Kershaw, Martin Brisks, and Ellie there. This is not going to be a live stream for the faintest of hearts. I'm just going to warn you guys now. Let us just dive straight into it. So I want to start with this one. I think this is out of all the clips I've gathered, I think this is the best one to start off with, because it kind of gives us a little bit of a breakdown of kind of what's going on. There's a lot more. Obviously, we're going to go through lots of different clips here. But it starts, obviously, I think we all knew Donald Trump was in the Epstein files before this latest batch of releases. We obviously know that his name was already in there. But it gets worse for him.
The problem is that it's turning out to be the Democrats that were with and conspired with Epstein. And frankly, the DOJ, I think, should just say, we have other things to do, because that whole thing has turned out, I mean, other than Bill Clinton and, Bill Gates and lots of people that there are a lot of questions about it, but nothing on me. When Epstein was alive, like 10 years ago, nobody cared about it.
Whoever cared about Epstein before Trump was president anyway?
Seriously, we need to release the Epstein list. That is an important thing.
Let's start with the Justice Department's congressionally mandated, though very delayed, release of another 3 million pages of Epstein-related documents.
And yes, you did hear J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States, quoting saying, let's release those files.
which were dumped online Friday afternoon in a fairly haphazard manner, so much so that the documents accidentally included dozens of nude photos of victims and in some cases full names and other information that could be used to identify them. The biggest takeaway, though, was that a bunch of very rich, famous, and powerful people were close to Epstein. You may even call it a cabal, and seemed to know both who they were dealing with and in some cases what he was up to. People like Elon Musk, Richard Branson, Peter Thiel, Sergey Brin, Bill Gates, Prince Andrew, and of course, Donald Trump, whose name appears more than 5,000 times in different contexts.
I thought Jeffrey Epstein was a scummy guy who did bad things and then used connections to avoid accountability. The web of connections that this man actually has, the clear evidence of trafficking that's in these files is stunning. Like, QAnon was right. They just looked the wrong direction. Things that jumped out at me, Steve Bannon is all over the Epstein files. They are really good friends. Bannon is helping him rehab his image. Epstein's helping Bannon fund his stuff. You mentioned the Trump piece. I mean, he's in 5,300 files. There's 38,000 references to Trump. Some of those are duplicative, but like, he's everywhere. And in this clip, it's like we've finally gotten the files, and now Trump is saying like, who even cares about this guy? It's been a long time. He's ready to move on.
I was watching as well while I was gathering a lot of information on all of this. I do recommend checking out Breaking Point's YouTube channel with Crystal and Saga. They did the breakdown that they did on their show yesterday. I thought was really, really a great stuff. They really broke. There's again, like the way they broke it down. I think they did an excellent job. I do recommend checking out their all their videos on this from the moment that it was released, because they covered it pretty much from on Monday. The parts that they did it, I thought was the way it was laid out to me in the video, I thought was very, very highly recommended as well. There is French President Emmanuel Macron apparently had an email conversation with Epstein there. Does that mean there is more going on there? Obviously, we have a situation in Norway right now where there is a rape trial taking place. Is Norway's royal family, apparently there may be some connection there to Epstein. Obviously, we know about Prince Andrew and Peter Mandelson. And obviously, one of the stories that's literally come out over the last 20, 30 minutes or so before we went live is Mandelson is stepping down from the House of Lords. He's resigning from the House of Lords, which thank God for that, because that saves a lot of trouble. I'm very happy he's doing that. Doesn't change the fact that that he's still linked to this man. And obviously, one of the images, which I'm not going to show you guys. There is one image of him literally with a redacted woman in his underwear, which is just pretty deplorable to say the least there. Among many other images images of what's happening as well.
There's one email where Epstein specifically talks about whether to call Trump about Virginia Giuffre, an Epstein victim who wrote a book about her experience, who died by suicide recently. We need to learn more about that. Elon Musk is a scumbag. He has a social relationship with Epstein. He clearly knows what's going on. He says, I want to go to your island for the wildest party. Now, we don't know if he ever went there, but he is all over these files. I was also just stunned by how truly global the scandal is.
And at the core of this whole enterprise was this disgusting man, this vicious monster that had built all these kind of layers around him to seem respectable. The fact that even now we still don't really totally understand a lot of what actually happened. We need to have public hearings about this to get the truth about it, including getting the participants in it, force them to speak in front of the country about what happened, because I still think we're going to live in this sort of semi-true kind of understanding because of the way they release these documents.
Yeah, I do agree with we're never going to get the full picture, and we can only go by what information that they've shared with us. So one of the first clips I want to share with you guys here, and I think this is some people may not like this comment, but there is some truth to this as well here about truth to this. So I just want to play this here.
Well, as some of the people we saw on camera at the rallies. Is there any chance that any of these individuals who partied with Epstein and engaged in, relations with minors will be prosecuted? Any chance?
I'll never say no. And we will always investigate any evidence of misconduct. But as you know, it is not a crime to party with Mr. Epstein. And so as horrible as it's not a crime to email with Mr. Epstein. And some of these men may have done horrible things. And if we have evidence that allows us to prosecute them, you better believe we will. But it's also the kind of thing that the American people need to understand, that it isn't a crime to party with Mr. Epstein. It isn't a crime to have
Didn't look
lunch on
like
his
that's all
island.
that was going on some of those photos. I mean, if the photos could speak, some of them look pretty bad.
That's right. And unfortunately, photos can't speak. And so
Yeah.
we need witnesses and we need
Are there
evidence.
videotapes that you all have?
So the comment there specifically I want to talk about is it's not a crime to party with Epstein. The reality is that we don't know what happens specifically at each of these parties. We can only speculate, and unless there's people that there's actual footage of photos of them actually doing some of these horrific things, then it's obviously a different story there. Obviously, one of the big allegations came out of the files was, of course, Donald Trump allegedly. A witness has reported that Trump had sex with an underage girl, allegedly, which was removed by the DOJ after it was released, but the information is already out there now. And it does question, obviously, how much of that is there. No authority, but we all the people will judge these monsters. Judgment Day. This is not Judgment Day. This is not Judgment Day. This is a reality of what's got. This is a snip. I don't call this Judgment Day. I call this a snippet of what really goes on in the real world with some of the most powerful people on the planet. And it's a case of you either get in bed or you disappear. And there's going to be an example of that. There's going to be an example of that later on with these clips here. I don't call this Judgment Day. The day I call it Judgment Day is when you see accountability, and you're not going to see accountability. You may see some people. You'll see obviously some names are obviously going to be thrown to the walls over this, but you're not going to get the real people who are behind this, the real people who are pulling the strings, the real people responsible for knowing this and allowing this to happen, knowing that they could have done something about this. Yes, there's going to be some people who will be used as cattle, as bait, to be pictured to you as, yeah, these guys are responsible, let's throw them out to the wolves. But there's going to be people that you're not going to see their names, you're not going to hear about, who are ultimately play crucial key parts in all of what's going on within this system, this dark system. It's not just about the girls and it's not just about the victims in this as much, and it should be about the victims, but it's not just about them. It's about the power, it's about the control that they have over as powerful men, businesses, billionaires, millionaires, companies, government officials. This is all there, and it's not just one country, it's multiple nations, a deep-rooted connection, very deep-rooted, that's been established. And Jeffrey Epstein has played a role in this. It's not just obviously what he's done, which is absolutely disgusting and horrible, but it's the connections there as well. User, good afternoon to you. This is another one here, which is just one. This is just one of many examples here of just how far power goes here, guys. Right? So this is the former South African ambassador to France from 2024 until his death in 2025. Yes, that's right. He died by suicide after allegedly jumping out of a window. Anyway, I'll let Brian speak on this because this is quite powerful. I mean, this is just one example.
So Ed posted a video right here yesterday showing a man on what appears to be Jeffrey Epstein's plane with a bunch of young women. Well, we've just been able to identify who this man is, and his name is Nathi Tetwa. He was the former South African ambassador to France before he died in 2025. Now, listen to this.
The Mtetwa family says there are still unanswered questions about the circumstances of the death of South Africa's ambassador to France, Nathi Mtetwa. He was found dead in France earlier this week after falling, apparently from the 22nd floor of a hotel in Paris.
The Epstein files just keep getting more and more interesting.
And the report was that died by suicide, and the family don't have the full answers as to why this happened. families want answers for this, but this is just one of many examples of where people have disappeared and they've got no explanation whatsoever to this. I'm just going to, guys, for reference, I'm just going to make my camera a little bit smaller, just so I don't get in the way of the footage for you guys. I thought this was, I know it's GB News, but I still think this is a pretty decent reporting about Edward speaking about the victims of Epstein here. I thought this was an interesting point here. So Prince Edward was obviously asked about this today.
This is sort of the first opportunity we've had to hear from a member of the royal family.
Well, it is, certainly since this latest tranche release of the Epstein files by the Department of Justice. And of course, those emails, those files heavily feature Edward's brother, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, formerly Prince. So hopefully we can take a quick listen to what Edward had to say.
With the best will in the world, I'm not sure this is the audience that is probably the least bit interested in that. So they all came here to listen to my education solving the future. But no, I think it's all really important always to remember the victims. And who are the victims in all this?
Now, Prince Edward on an official visit to Dubai. This perhaps highlights how members of the working royal family are continue to be overshadowed by something such as this, with Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and his association with the convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Of course, Andrew has always denied the allegations against him. But the other thing that I thought was quite crucial is that Edward spoke about the victims of Epstein here, something that Andrew failed to do during that Newsnight interview in 2019, which ultimately led to his downfall. Nonetheless, very, very embarrassing. At the same time, of course, it's been revealed in these tranche of emails that Sarah Ferguson, Andrew's ex-wife, went to take his two daughters, Beatrice and Eugenie, to meet Epstein 5 days after he was released from prison on child sex offence charges.
Very odd, very odd. I noticed that Edward's sort of hand gesture when he said the victims, and to me it looked like a sort of a rehearsed answer, because I feel they've all been briefed to say the victims.
I would be very surprised if they had not had some kind of advice which suggests that if you are ambushed, for want of a better phrase, by a journalist or somebody about the Epstein allegations and you are being filmed, perhaps this is the way to answer it. But also, I think it shows something about Prince Edward's character in contrast to his brother Andrew. Edward clearly there having sympathy and empathy with the victims, and Andrew still has failed to do so in any statement that he has released since these allegations first came to light, dating way back to 2011. So I think that perhaps shows that the working royalty remain, Edward, William, Catherine, King, Queen, whoever, are very much perhaps on the same wavelength, but nonetheless very difficult time for them in terms of that overshadowing that's happening with.
But Andrew would argue that, of course, he's not guilty of anything. So
yes,
that's why.
Yeah, except there's literally a picture of him on top of an underage girl. There's photos of him literally on top of an underage girl in a very, very unusual position. But no, he's definitely innocent, guys. Like, do not treat me and the people like a bunch of fucking idiots. Okay. Like there are literal photos of him. A photo of him. I'm not going to show you guys the photo. You can look it up yourself. There's literally a photo of him on top of a underage girl. Like, I don't know how much, like, that's... Now, you could argue that, you could try and spin that as much as you bloody want, but I would not be surprised whatsoever if more footage comes out. And by the way, as well as it's important, worth pointing out to people as well, we're not even halfway into the release of all the files. By the way, that's not including the everything that's redacted. Not even half the files have been released. Like, that's... And you think we've seen everything? We haven't even gotten to halfway to the amount of content that is in here. That's how insane this is. I don't think it's worth listening any more of this. But I thought this is this retired FBI agent here, Steve Lagris here. Don't be fooled. The DOJ will never reveal the full extent of the Epstein files. And this is the point I was making about whether we'll have Judgment Day or not. There, Edward hated Andrew. Yes, that's true. 234. You're absolutely right. He's never. They were never on the same page there. And you know what? I bet he's glad he never got along with him. But it doesn't change the fact that the royal family has been very much tarnished by Andrew and what he has done.
This isn't transparency. It's a cover-up, and here's how it works. They show you flight logs, emails, PG-rated photos, fragments of conversations that have been stripped of the meat. A few big names get thrown under the bus. It's just enough to feel disturbing, but never enough to prove anything about the real players. That's what you'll see in this massive document dump. What you won't see is context. You won't see corroboration, and you definitely won't see accountability, because that's not the point. This is a weaponized DOJ strategy of controlled confusion, and it's working perfectly. You see, they don't protect powerful people by erasing evidence. They protect them by releasing it slowly, by delaying key documents, by over-redacting names, and by letting the public fight over the scraps if we're not too distracted by the latest military invasion of a third world country or a major US city. Chaos becomes their cover. The goal isn't to reveal the truth, it's to survive it. So read the files, but don't confuse access with justice, because sometimes the most effective cover-up is letting you see just enough. This isn't.
And I think that's really powerful, especially from somebody who has, especially from a former from a retired FBI agent who knows and understands this better, much better than any of us, for sure. The problem is Twitter has like a bunch of photos uncensored, and they're just uploading them. Oh my God, they are just horrifying. There were unfortunately photos from that were released on Friday that were, unfortunately, they released nude photos. I have not actually seen those photos. I'm very lucky, but I'm fortunate to have not seen them. So I have not seen those, and even if I did, I would not share them with you guys for obvious reasons there. Yes, and obviously the other thing as well is we'll get to in a moment, I believe, this is the next part, we're going to get to it in a moment, which is very, very upsetting, is obviously the victims in this, and the victims...
Hi, my name's Anushka.
The victims where they were promised that this would be done properly and thoroughly here. And an Epstein survivor here, obviously speaking out about this, and it's obviously a lot for them, a lot for her, and understandably so. But it's pretty. I say the word heartbreaking as well as anger at the same time with this one.
Hi, my name's Anushka DeGiorgio, and I'm a survivor of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. And today I'm not reading any of Virginia Giuffre's book. Over the weekend, when I was spending time with my daughter on what was meant to be a regenerative and recovery-based trip, doing some therapy, I got a message from my attorneys, Brad Edwards and Brittany Henderson, that pages and pages of my personal information and notes from the federal agents during the federal trial that I was required to participate in the trial of Ghislaine Maxwell had been released with the Epstein files. And I got a sinking feeling in my stomach. And in some ways it was like the sinking feeling of being traumatized by the perpetrators, being re-traumatized by the perpetrators. But this time it felt even worse, because the current administration were meant to be releasing the files responsibly. When I met with Speaker Johnson at Capitol Hill a few months ago, he shook my hand and he looked me in the eye and he said, "I'm so sorry for what you've been through. And I want you to hold me personally accountable for following through on getting these files released in an effective and a responsible way, protecting your identity, your experiences, and holding accountable the people who are responsible for enabling and committing these crimes." Well, that's not what's happened. And it makes me lose faith in this country, in the system. And it's been a very difficult weekend. Accountability seems to be very hard won in the world today, and particularly in this country. I hope things can change soon. Please share this video and share your thoughts on how we can encourage accountability and hold the government, the administration, to the standards that they should be held to.
What really angers me is, like, I speak of Mike Johnson. Obviously, obviously I don't know whether or not he's in the Epstein files. I'm going to assume he's not, but we already knew Mike Johnson was already a vile, disgusting human being. But it once again reinforces this. But just listening to that, guys, reinforces this image of just how much distrust you have in politics, how much you have distrust in governments, in the political system, when you have somebody, regardless of political ideologies and all that kind of stuff, you have a politician looking you dead in the eye and telling you that I will see to this personally, I will take care of this, and if I get this wrong, you can hold me accountable and whatnot. And it's just complete. It was nothing more than a complete and total fucking show from Mike Johnson. He does not give a shit about her. He does not give a shit about these victims. All he cares about is holding on to power. That makes me sick. And it also emphasizes, when I think about the victims in all of this, that's once again, like, how are victims ever supposed to come forward about their stories, their crimes? Never mind just this absolutely horrific tragedy on the human race by Jeffrey Epstein and this debacle, but any and all victims of these crimes. How are any women supposed to feel confident going forward when consistently, time and time again, law, the rule of law and governments and justice have let you down time and time again, and you hear the constant stories of letting you down time and time again? It discourages people from wanting to come forward and share their stories. It really, really does. There will be many women who will look at this video and will not, and maybe some of them were maybe thinking about coming forward with some of their own stories separately or part of the Epstein case or not. And some of them will be watching that and they'll be saying to themselves, it's not worth me going through that ordeal, that trauma again, because I won't get justice even if I go forward. Like, how can I get justice knowing what she has just had, what she went through? Like, it destroys people. It really, really does. So, yes, the people who are uploading on Twitter of the pictures of the files accounts are being taken down by an unknown source. So yeah, good luck trying to find them. If they are, they will be. Listen, it's obviously you're not gonna, like, once the images and videos are up, you aren't getting rid of them. Either someone is gonna share them somewhere else. If they're not going to be on Twitter, they're going to be on Facebook. If they're not going to be on Facebook, they're going to be on Discord. If they're not going to be on Discord, they're going to be on Reddit. If they're not going to be on Reddit, they're going to be on Snapchat. If they're not going to be on Snapchat, they're going to be on Instagram. Once they're on the internet, there are hundreds and thousands of social media places and whatnot. You can't delete it once you put it up. You're essentially buggered. That you're not getting around the bush. Like, you can't erase something. Once something is put up on the internet, yeah, that's it. You can't delete. You can't erase it. Unless you delete it before someone shares it, you're buggered. It doesn't matter how many times Twitter takes down information whatsoever. That information is out there. You put it up and it's too late. But yeah, Twitter can try as hard as they can, but it's just going to get shared somewhere else at the end of the day. So this is the one of the stories that on the allegation against Trump, one of the biggest ones from Donald Trump in this one here. So allegations against Trump in the Epstein files being partially corroborated. You might recall the allegations against Trump in the latest Epstein files released when they were made by a woman who was 16 at the time. This this is going to be brutal to listen to.
The Epstein files claim that Trump partook in orgies with underage women. Now, this is absolutely crazy. These allegations have partially been corroborated. Let me explain. You might recall this document. A 16-year-old claimed that at Epstein's estate, she was sexually assaulted with her friends by 3 brothers, Orrin, Allen, and Tal. Also, she claimed that she was involved in big orgies with Bill Clinton and Donald Trump. Now, this is where things get really interesting. 3 brothers, Orrin, Allen, and Tal, were arrested last year for sex trafficking, and they are currently on trial. And get this, one of the accusers who are expected to testify at trial was 16 at the time of her alleged assault.
Now, what are the possibilities that that woman could be the same one that could come forward on Donald Trump? Just saying. Not saying it's going to be, but just saying.
But it gets even worse than this. This file was in the Epstein files. This is Orrin Alexander. And this woman claims to have video evidence. I think it's time to arrest both of these guys.
Claims to have video evidence. Hold on, let me go back to that bit. Complainant claims to have video evidence of high-profile sex parties dealings with cartels, having witnessed Robert Logan strangle a young girl to death at a party. What are the chances of there being video footage of Trump? And remember, people voted for them. 16 is way too young. Yeah, of course. Of course, 16 is way too young. Good afternoon, Rosemary. Hope you are doing well. This is one man I feel sorry for. This is someone who... The reason that these are... He is one of the people who fought to get these out. And I feel sorry for this man because he can't deal with how they come out. But Rogando's the one who pushed to get this out. And it's not politics for him. It's personal. And you know, because he cares about justice. I don't think he's a perfect politician, but you know, this guy is one of the few politicians that is the reason these files are out.
I know you worked very carefully to include the Epstein survivors in what you were doing, and you sought their approval for what you were doing. How does it feel to you tonight that what you promised them in the release of the Epstein files did not happen for all of them, that some of them, in fact, were exposed in these files?
I'm so angry, Lawrence. It's become personal for me. As you know, you're the one who connected me to Bradley Edwards, who then connected Thomas Massie and I to the survivors. These survivors have been in my office. They've talked about being abused and how it's like having a box and pushing that box away, but it never goes away. I've seen these people break down in tears in my office. This isn't politics. It's really become personal. And to see them betrayed when it all could have been avoided, that's why Thomas Massie and I asked the court for a special master. That's why we've been offering to meet with the Justice Department. That's why Bradley Edwards every day was saying to the Justice Department, consult us. And they did none of this. They've just been callous to these survivors. And they've been obsessed about protecting rich and powerful people who abuse them. And it's really a symptom of how our system has been co-opted by rich and powerful people and how ordinary people don't feel like they have justice in Donald Trump's America.
It's not just Donald Trump's America. This is across the globe. This is in the UK. This is in France. This is in other democratic nations where they feel disemboweled by leaders who are not taking accountability for this here. No worries, Joe. Thanks for popping in. Appreciate it. Thank God we have a way back machine, right? Even if there is a video footage, they'll get away with it because they always do. Yeah, they do, Witchigoth. They do. Yeah, that's the damning thing. You know, and then what's happening in Israel is a prime example, unfortunately, of it. In the Middle East, sorry. Now, I have not heard from Ben Shapiro since this, but I do wonder. It does make me. I'm not saying Ben Shapiro is in the files, but this obviously is a guy. Obviously, he's a very staunch defender of Israel, who have deep links to the deep links in the Epstein files as well. But this is an interesting clip. So half a year ago, Ben Shapiro insisted that there was no Epstein list, no Epstein files, and no human trafficking. He even mocked Tucker Carlson and claimed that Moss had nothing to do with it. Unbelievable.
Thousands of hours of tape. There are, by the way, but they are child pornography. The reason the FBI is not releasing them is because those tapes do not include underage people with third parties on Epstein Island. That is not what the tapes are. Okay, I also have sources in the federal government who are covering this stuff and have seen the documents. Okay, those tapes are just child porn. That's all. That's what they are. That's why the FBI is not releasing them. Okay, as far as the Epstein list, what I have been told by my sources is that there is no Epstein list, that basically there's a black book of Jeffrey Epstein contacts. And the vast majority of those contacts are already out there publicly. That's why you know names like Prince Andrew or Alan Dershowitz or some of the names that have been mentioned here. Those contacts, there is no evidence, according to the DOJ and the FBI, and again, that's public. There's no evidence that any of those third parties were having girls trafficked to them.
I don't need to play anymore because I'm not going to take any lectures from a guy who's going to make statements like this without unless you absolutely know for sure. This is a guy who is incredibly popular on the center right, a very staunch defender of Israel, has a lot of influence and talks a lot, and normally he has some context to back it up. But this is the first time he's been made to look like a fucking idiot in front of the world, and I do have to call him a fucking idiot because, you know, for someone who is considered to be by people somebody that people really do, there are people out there who consider him very respected and influential and whatnot. You know, if you're going to make a statement or comment out there, make sure that you have your ass covered, because one thing he did not have was his ass covered whatsoever. It's very, very clearly his sources were lying to him, or he knew something at the time that he wasn't supposed to say. But the thing is that if you knew that, you wouldn't say anything. So, yeah, he shot. No, this is unfortunately it's not. It wasn't AI from Ben Shapiro. Unfortunately, it wasn't. It would be nice if it was, though. No, what am I saying? I'm not a fan of Ben Shapiro in any way, shape, or form, personally. Anyway, let's hear it from Sotero's point of view on this as well.
Why are Democrats not pushing to release the files? I will note that Democrats have been doing a good job of that lately, led by Democrats like Ro Khanna. But Ro Khanna is also someone that you asked recently. Yes. To Sky Jupiter's point, why didn't Democrats do something about this when they did have power before 2025?
It's a fantastic question, and I think there needs to be some real reporting done and people talk to the Biden administration. Because the pat answer is, well, there was an ongoing legal case with Ghislaine Maxwell, and therefore they couldn't release anything while it was still in court and a live case. But Maxwell was sentenced, I think, convicted in 2022. So what were they doing in 2023? What were they doing in 2024? Think about it. Merrick Garland and Joe Biden were sitting on this explosive stuff. Garland, from a judicial legal perspective, was sitting on potential crimes, right, in these documents. Not, you know, Elon Musk keeps saying, prosecute the people. Okay, why didn't Garland prosecute people who are in these files who may have committed crimes? And none of
It's also worth mentioning, Joe Biden has not been mentioning any of the Epstein files. None at all, by the way. There's no knowledge, as far as I'm aware, I've heard of any kind of... Joe Biden has not been mentioned in the latest batch whatsoever. No emails, no documents, nothing so far.
None of the people we've mentioned, just to be clear, are we accusing of committing crimes? But crimes clearly were committed around Jeffrey Epstein. So what was Garland doing? Useless attorney general, a man I blame for Donald Trump being president today. And Joe Biden, I mean, what were you doing? Why did you not release this stuff? You know, the irony is that the Republicans spent 4 years saying they've weaponized the government against us. They've weaponized the government against us.
We know, like I said this I think I said this when we were talking about this, when about them releasing their files and all that kind of stuff. And I said it at the time, like Chuck Schumer is in bed, well, obviously, with Israel. From Israel's perspective, they do not want this being released. From Israel's perspective, because they have ties to Epstein, they have ties to all of this as well. But also, there are Democrats, like the Clintons, who did not want this obviously being released as well, because it damages their party as well. So they didn't want it released, but it would have made the Democrats look a hell of a lot better if they did.
If only they'd weaponized the government. People like me, I wish Democrats were cynical and ruthless and the kind of people that Republicans imagine them to be. Can you imagine if Donald Trump was president and was sitting on a bunch of files that showed Joe Biden is being accused of sex crimes? Joe Biden is friends with the worst pedophile in modern American history. You think he wouldn't have released this stuff? Come on.
Yeah, imagine in the presidential race that they released parts of the Epstein file featuring Donald Trump. Just imagine if they had done that, right? Think about that. That would have killed that might have killed Donald Trump's presidency. That might have killed him. You know, imagine that, yeah? Imagine that file that was put up and that was retracted by the DOJ about alleging that he had sex with an underage girl, right? Or the R word, right? Imagine that being in the news in the run up to the presidential election. Like, how many people would turn their backs on Trump there? That might have swayed a few voters away from Donald Trump at the election.
You think Pam Bondi wouldn't have released this stuff if it was all Biden all over these files? It would have been released on day one of the presidency, court case or not. Democrats, as usual, just, you know, they're the people who bring the butter knife to the gunfight. Republicans bring the bazooka. We've talked about that before. But it's complete. I mean, Ro Khanna now and Summerlee and others have pushed for this. But it is an indictment of the Biden administration that they went into an election. They went into an election where Elon Musk was spending $250 million to help Trump win Pennsylvania and all these swing states. And they never leaked this stuff that Elon Musk was begging Jeffrey Epstein for an invite on Christmas morning to his island.
Yeah, I still cannot get over that. Elon Musk begging on Christmas morning at 6 a.m. on an email to join him on Epstein Island. Elon freaking Musk. What a sad little man he is, honestly. Like, for someone who is considered one of the most wealthiest men in the world, who is considered supposed to be a guy who has a smart brain and whatnot, my God, he is so fucking stupid. Like, Elon Musk is actually like, I got the impression that Elon Musk is like he's like that kid in the playground that wants to be with the wants to be at the party with the better kids and whatnot. You know, and he keeps getting rejected and just left on the outside sort of thing.
Why was that not released before the 2024 election? Why?
Yeah, why? That's the good question there. Why is the good question here. So I got another in-depth piece here from Sky News on the Epstein files here. Some of it we've already heard, and some of it we have may have not. Billy Kershaw, good to see you there. Not just America, UK too. Yep. UK, France. We mentioned a South African ambassador who committed suicide by throwing himself out of a window, which, by the way, they still have no answers to as well. Obviously, there's links to to countries in the Middle East as well with Epstein as well, and as well Macron emailing Jeffrey Epstein as well. Like, it's not just UK and the US here. It's really want to stress that.
Sky News works through the millions of files. More information emerges. Among the latest documents to be discovered are emails suggesting Sarah Ferguson arranged for Epstein to pay for flights for herself and her two daughters, Beatrice and Eugenie. Let's cross now to our data and forensics correspondent, Tom Cheshire. And Tom,
Sarah,
you've been taking a look at some of this huge data dump.
Yeah, I mean, this is day 5 of the release of this latest dump, and we're still finding things pretty much every hour as our team combs through these documents. The latest, as you said, regards Sarah Ferguson and Jeffrey Epstein. Now, again, being mentioned in these files is no suggestion of wrongdoing. We have known they had a relationship before, but this is in 2009, the 24th of July. And this is Jeffrey Epstein's assistant, Leslie Groff, asking Epstein about the flights they're buying for the Duchess, referring to Sarah Ferguson and the girls. We know that this is Beatrice and Eugenie because because here are the details on another email with their frequent flyer numbers, which have been.
Where did you hear Tony Blair, Rosemary? I've not come across Tony Blair's name mentioned in any of the Epstein files.
Redacted. This is a flight to Miami. The date's really, really important here because this correspondence is from the 23rd of July. Jeffrey Epstein was released from prison the day before, July the 22nd, 2009. He'd been convicted for procuring for prostitution a girl below 18. He's a registered sex offender at this point. And here, Sarah Ferguson is taking her daughters, 19 and 20 years old, at the time to meet this registered sex offender. We do know they went to his house based on further emails. This suggests talking about vegetable lasagna or salads, visiting Jeffrey Epstein's house in Miami. And further testament to the strength of that relation, this is an email from Sarah Ferguson to Epstein from July 2010. This is when she was in the middle of the fallout from a tabloid sting over an apparent cash for access to her husband, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, then Prince Andrew. She says, I'm now 1,000% being hung out to dry, just as I predicted. You will see the press will have me exiled, just as I always said. No woman has ever left the royal family with her head, and they cannot behead me, therefore they will discredit me. Totally to obliteration. We'll keep going and understanding that relationship more. And again, there's no evidence, no suggestion of any wrongdoing here. The other person we've been talking about today, this week, is Peter Mandelson, as we've discussed already. This is another
This video was before Mandelson announced his resignation from the House of Lords, just for reference.
Email from Jeffrey Epstein to Peter Mandelson. It's in 2009. In May 2009, Epstein says to Mandelson, "You are the only person who knows everything about me. Don't go away." Peter Mandelson has said that he was suggested that he was taken in by Jeffrey Epstein, that he was a sociopath. He said in an interview with The Times that, like everyone else, I learned the truth about him after his death, not in the early noughties. But they had this really, really close relationship. If we go on to the next document, this is ahead of the 2010 election. Mandelson writes to Jeffrey Epstein, "We are praying for a hung parliament, alternatively, a well-hung young man." And then there's this email. This is in May the 10th, 2010. It says, it's from Peter Mandelson to Jeffrey Epstein. It says, "Finally got him to go today." We can't say for sure who him is, but a day later, Gordon Brown, the Prime Minister, then resigned. So even at the height of these moments of real political significance, Peter Mandelson maintaining that relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. There is lots more to.
Yeah. Jeffrey Epstein was not a fan of Gordon Brown, the Prime Minister at the time, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, chat, but there was a story about changes to certain taxes in that Gordon Brown was introducing, and Epstein was not a fan of that and wanted that changed, and he told Mandelson to try and influence that. Hence why we got this whole investigation that the Metropolitan Police has launched and all that kind of stuff, because Peter Mandelson shared government information, sensitive information, to Jeffrey Epstein here. He was pretty much a stooge for them. I think that's absolutely for sure. So that's South Nations, more about big international finance involvement, dirty money, and all that. Well, that's one. Well, personally, I'm glad. Funny that you mentioned that. The one thing that's not been, we don't have yet. I knocked my note over again. The one thing we don't have yet is bank account details, bank transfers. That has not been released in the files. Like I said, we haven't even gotten. They haven't even released half of the Epstein files yet. So once they are brought up, that will be very interesting to break down as we speak. But it like I said, there's so many files and there's so many bits coming out. And I'll say this before and I'll say this again. Like, for those who have joined halfway through, since I said at the start of this video. I do recommend people checking out Breaking Points with Crystal and Saga. They did not the ones that they put out today, the ones they do yesterday, the videos they put out on their YouTube channel yesterday. I do recommend do check it out because they did a great job of digging deep into not just what's America, but all sorts of different connections as well. There, I do highly recommend it. I think they did a wonderful job trying to break down as much as they possibly can within the time that they have, and I'm sure they'll have more to share today as well. A reminder here of the history between these two. She would sell them for money. Is the lifestyle? Yeah, but emails show how low the filth will go. Yeah, it is true.
This is a film about Trump's relationship with the world's most famous pedophile, Jeffrey Epstein. Their friendship goes back to at least 1992, when the two of them are filmed laughing together. Trump can be seen making friendly conversation with Epstein in between clips of Trump smiling and dancing with a group of young women at his Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida. The following year, they attend a cafe opening together. And a month after that, Trump invites Epstein to his wedding. In 1995, a young woman called Maria Farmer is working for Epstein in Manhattan. Late one night, she says, Epstein unexpectedly calls her to his offices, and she arrives in running shorts. Donald Trump then turns up, wearing a business suit, and starts to hover over her. Ms. Farmer feels scared as Trump stares at her bare legs. Then Epstein enters the room, and she recalls him saying to Trump, "No, she's not here for you." The two men then leave the room, and Ms. Farmer says she heard Trump commenting that he thought Ms. Farmer was 16 years old. She says she later reported the incident to the authorities. Trump denies he was ever in Epstein's office. 1993 to 1997, Trump takes at least 8 flights on Epstein's private jet, according to flight logs released by the U.S. Department of Justice. The plane is later dubbed the Lolita Express, a reference to the character in the Nabokov novel by the same name, a 12-year-old child who is sexually abused by an older man. 1997, Trump and Epstein are seen together at 2 Victoria's Secret parties and are photographed together at Mar-a-Lago. The same year, Trump gifts a book to Epstein with the dedication, "To Jeff, you are the greatest, Donald." 2000, a 16-year-old girl, Virginia Giuffre, is working in the spa at Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort. There, she is recruited by Epstein's accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, to work as a personal masseuse for Epstein. The teenager will soon become, in her words, a teen sex slave and will endure years of sexual abuse.
I was recruited at a very young age from Mar-a-Lago and entrapped in a world that I didn't understand.
25 years later, Trump will acknowledge he was aware that young women were being recruited from Mar-a-Lago by Epstein.
Are some of them young women? Well, I don't want to say, but everyone knows the people that were taken. And it was the concept of taking people that work for me is bad. But that story's been pretty well out there. And the answer is yes, they were.
Trump is then asked if one of them was Virginia Giuffre.
I think she worked at the spa. I think so. I think that was one of the people, yeah. He stole her.
2 years later, after Giuffre was recruited from his club by Epstein and Maxwell, Trump tells New York Magazine he thinks that Epstein is a, quote, terrific guy.
Terrific guy. Yeah, 12-year-old Rosemary. Yeah. They were younger than 16, some of them. Some of them were much younger. Rosemary. Much younger. Calling more Republican Marlene Strasberry said the American people deserve the truth, they deserve justice, and no amount of gaslighting and lies in the Epstein case will stop us getting to both. Damage breaking won't stop until every file is released and everyone is held to account. I mean, I appreciate the passion, but like, it's not as simple as that.
we know for a fact that we do not have everything. In fact, we know that Department of Justice found over 6 million documents that were considered responsive not only to the Epstein Files Transparency Act, but to the subpoena that they have not yet responded to in full. And so we know that DOJ is not compliant with the law. They are failing to comply with our subpoena. We know that they're intentionally withholding work product that implicates the individuals.
To be honest, 234, it wouldn't matter because they would just forge. They would forge. You know, these are powerful people that will literally just buy off whoever they need to buy off in order for people to ignore that kind of stuff.
That were being investigated by Department of Justice, including potential co-conspirators. And we know that Todd Blanche went on national television on Friday morning and tried to tell the American people, don't believe your eyes. We're going to show you a bunch of documents, but there's nobody in them. Well, Donald Trump is not only in 5,300 documents, he is named tens of thousands of times in these documents. So this is not nearly over. And there are 37 individuals directly tied to Donald Trump referenced in these documents, including his wife, including Howard Lutnick, including Elon Musk.
Oh, yeah, his wife got mentioned in the files. Did you know that, guys? Yeah, Melania. Yeah, funny that.
And we have a lot of investigating to do ahead of us.
Congresswoman, attorneys for many of these Epstein survivors are making the same claims in courts. In fact, they are asking the DOJ to take down the file's website in recent litigation. Have you heard from any of these survivors about their efforts to use litigation to stop the DOJ from having their identities placed online?
Yes, absolutely. So since the files began to drop on Friday, I've heard from numerous survivors. I had a lengthy discussion with one of the survivors today. In addition to feeling like their own safety and their rights are being violated by these disclosures, they are also finding evidence of additional trafficking, and other survivors are actually coming forward and contacting them now. So even though obviously the administration is trying to intimidate and silence survivors, because the dam is breaking loose, we are now seeing even more survivors, not only of Epstein's, but potentially of Trump's, that are coming forward now as a result of all of this.
There will be, yeah, so there will be survivors' names that will be exposed. That have been exposed from this, that don't even want to be named, that some of them just don't want to talk about it, some of them don't want to be out there and just want to be kept hidden. But like we went back to what the retired FBI agent said, they don't care. This Trump administration don't care because they want to cause chaos and confusion, and that's why they're doing it the way they are. The way they are doing it. So you're going to, like I said, there are a lot of victims. Well, there may be some victims who will want to come forward. Like I said earlier, there's going to be a lot that will not want to come forward because, again, they don't trust the system.
Congresswoman, we also reported the texts that highlight what seemed to be a very deep and close relationship between Epstein and Steve Bannon. What's the reaction on Capitol Hill to these new revelations?
Well, you know, we subpoenaed the estate, and about 3 months ago, the estate produced thousands of pages of emails and texts, and there was extensive communication with Steve Bannon at that time. And so I don't think these are new revelations, but what is new in these files are some of the accusations against the president himself, against Howard Lutnick, who went on national television and claimed that he had never been to the island and in fact had actually gone. Elon Musk, who's out there tweeting about Donald Trump being in the files, and he's trying to find parties on Epstein's island. You know, it turns out that, as I said, there are over 30 individuals from Trump's orbit who are implicated. And I think a particular note is the fact that, you know, Melania Trump's documentary was aired this weekend, and the producer and director of that documentary is actually in the files. There's a photograph of him with the primary sex trafficker that was working with Epstein to bring models into a sex trafficking network. So it's very damning.
Talk about like in plain bloody sight, the very person behind producing Melania's film is also in the Epstein files. Like they're all in on it. Like they're all in on it. Like when people say, "What's the connection here? What's the connection here?" They're all in on it. They're all in on it. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. This woman, sorry, I have to say this. This woman turns my stomach. It's an old clip. This was before the files were released. It's an old clip. I want to make that clear. Before the latest rounds of files were clipped. There's actually quite I think it was a few months ago this one came out. But, my God, like... It turns my stomach when people are trying to defend this and whatnot. And you can already tell how one-sided this one is just because of one person. You can tell with the necklace there the other lady is wearing, the kind of context here. But Megyn Kelly here, yeah, I don't think many people are going to take her seriously going forward.
As for Epstein, I've said this before, but just as a reminder, I do know somebody very, very close to this case who is in a position to know virtually everything. Not everything, but virtually everything. And this person has told me from the start, years and years ago, that Jeffrey Epstein, in this person's view, was not a pedophile. This is this person's view, who was there for a lot of this, but that he was into the barely legal type. Like he liked 15-year-old girls. And I realize this is disgusting. I'm definitely not trying to make an excuse for this. I'm just giving you facts.
Yeah, you're definitely not trying to play it down. You're definitely not trying to make it out like, you know, that Epstein was a paedophile in any way, shape, or form. But go on, do dig yourself a hole and dig yourself the long, deep, dark hole that you intend to dig yourself here.
That he wasn't into like 8-year-olds, but he liked the very young teen types that could pass for even younger than they were, but would look legal to a passerby. And
again, like why are you describing it like this in any way, shape, or form? It's just insane. Why are you trying to spin something that even before these files came out on Friday? Why would you even try to spin this, knowing that more files were going to come out, more documents are going to come out? And yet here you are trying to spin this in some way, shape, or form that perhaps it's not as bad as it was, or perhaps he wasn't as bad as a guy as he was. And the guy's dead as well.
And that is what I believed, and that was what I reliably was told for many years. And it wasn't until we heard from Pam Bondi that they had tens of thousands of videos of alleged, forgive me, they used to call it kiddie porn. Now they call it child sexual abuse material on his computer, that for the first time I thought, oh, no, he was an actual pedophile. I mean, only a pedophile gets off on young children abuse videos. She's never clarified it. I don't know whether it's true. I have to be honest. I don't really trust Pam Bondi's word on the Epstein matters anymore. Yeah, so I don't know what's true about him, but we have yet to see anybody come forward and say, I was I was under 10. I was under 14 when I first came within his purview. Look, it's
like, yeah, just do yourself a favor. Go back to your big fat mansion, wherever the fuck it is, and just stay there and get the fuck off social media, because you clearly don't know. Clearly don't know anything, you know. Like, I don't know why anyone would go down this hole of trying to defend it, but it's just absolutely insane. Internalized misogyny, yeah, that's a good way of putting it, Witchigoff, absolutely. This, I thought, one of the many clips I thought I came across, this was quite fascinating one here. And I've seen this guy before. He does catch on some pretty good interviews here and there. And he got a good one here about a neighbor who used to live, one of asking Epstein's neighbors about the Epstein files. I thought this was quite a fascinating point of view here. I wish they start talking about the missing souls or the children who died on the island in these files. They're mentioning of these deaths. I wonder if there was a marquee on the island. Yeah, there's a lot of people who, you know, when you think about the stories about women and people going missing and what's happened to them, and then where's the accountability there as well? It's a very dark fault, to say the least.
You've been living in the neighborhood for a long time? Yeah. And did you ever see any really rich and powerful people go inside this building?
You want to know who I saw going in there? Everyone you've heard about.
Really?
Yeah.
Can you name any names?
Yeah, you know them all from the newspaper.
Did you see Bill Clinton going there?
Who?
Bill Clinton?
Yeah.
Bill Gates?
No.
Trump?
Yeah, I think of the other ones. Andrew.
Prince Andrew, you saw Prince Andrew on there. And what do you think actually happened inside of this home?
All the most terrible things you can think of both.
And what do you think the truth is about the Epstein files?
Well, someone has them. Yeah. Maxwell probably would be the best source, but she'll stay put.
Would you support Donald Trump if he were to give her a pardon to let her spill all the information?
No. Because that means she's out of jail. She was definitely his partner. I believe that.
And so you've seen people like Prince Andrew, Trump, the Clintons, a lot of other people walk inside this building.
Yeah, well, you knew it. They all come with security guards who park here or stand out here, so you can't miss it. And I saw plenty over the years. This is a long time ago now, before we knew what was going on. Just young girls. I mean, young.
How old
teenagers.
were the girls that you saw go in?
Well, because they were coming from schools. They were coming from public schools.
Really?
So they were high school age.
Wow, so you saw a bunch of high schoolers going inside
You
here.
could tell. I always come this way home, and you'd cross the street, and maybe on the far corner would be two girls. Now, don't get nervous. It's going to be all right. He's really a nice man. You know, he promised people that didn't know people like this exist in a gorgeous house like this. They didn't know he was going to abuse them. He said, "Oh, you're so beautiful. You know, when you get out of high school, I'm going to get you a modeling job. I'm going to set you up." And, you know, he promised them all kinds of things, and they unfortunately believed him.
Straight from high school, he took them to the house. Straight from high school, guys. So, yeah. Yeah, less than 16, if you haven't got it already. Nick Shirley gets some very good stuff. It's just creepy, it's just abominable there. Straight from high school. It does make me wonder. I wonder how many kids. It does make me wonder how many kids went missing around that time as well. How many actually got to go back to their parents, go back to school after and a day or the night at the house there. I thought this was a great perspective as well from with regards to this as well. Afternoon, Dave McGuinness. I've been covering quite a bit of this diabolical stuff for over an hour now, and we're going to keep going because it's we have to talk about this.
The problem with calling it the Epstein files is that it's sort of it creates almost like a cordon sanitaire around the issue. But I think that level of arrogance and the level of impunity that many of these elite men felt of like, well, I can tell this lie at this point because there's no way this other stuff is going to come to light. I don't think that the former Prince Andrew is unique in thinking like that. And I don't think that Jeffrey Epstein was unique for his wrongdoing either. I think that there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes on at the uppermost echelons of society where experience has told them that they don't have to worry about the law, they don't have to worry about journalists, and they don't have to worry about public opinion. And it's sexual entitlement, and it's a complete disregard for what is underpinning the realities of your sexual access to women who would not be interested in you if you were not a prince, and possibly aren't interested in you, are there because they've been coerced or trafficked or made to in some way. Wealth, power, status, impunity plays out on these very gendered lines and has a kind of sexual dimension as well. If you have a class of men who are that rich and that powerful and that beyond the law, obviously there is going to be a kind of enacted misogyny that they're living every day. But they're living that way, you know, every day, and they're so immersed in it they can't even see what a moral cesspit it really is.
And it's true. It's true. When you have so much power, when you have so much wealth, and you feel a sense of money can buy you off anything. Like, who gives a shit about the law? Oh, who gives a shit about the consequences? They don't live in the realities of the norm like ordinary people like you and I. This is why we need to stop people turning from millionaires into billionaires. This is why we need to take that money away, because they feel a sense of impunity, immortality of some sorts, that they can feel that they can do all these things and not face any consequences whatsoever for them, because they have the money that they can do so, that they can just buy their way out of it. Oh, okay, you get me connections with whoever I need to get into to keep me safe, never mind just getting the most powerful attorneys and whatnot. No, buying a politician or buying a political party, so that if anything ever goes wrong, there'll be someone's there to take to take them away, or drag the conversation away, or some way, shape, or form. To millionaires and billionaires like these, there are no such thing as rules to them. Melania Gates said her divorce from Bill Gates was partly due to his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. He was a horn, and he was evil personified as well. So, obviously, Jeffrey Epstein's relationship with Bill Gates was a part of the reason for their breakup.
It was also widely reported that Bill had a friendship or business or some kind of contact with Jeffrey Epstein, and that you were not, that was very upsetting to you. Did that play a role in the divorce at all in this process?
Yeah, as I said, it's not one thing, it was many things. But I did not like that he'd had meetings with Jeffrey Epstein, no.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you made that clear to him?
I made that clear to him. I also met Jeffrey Epstein exactly one time.
Did you?
Yes, because I wanted to see who this man was. And I regretted it from the second I stepped in the door. He was abhorrent. He was evil personified. I had nightmares about it afterwards. So, my heart breaks for these young women, because that's how I felt. And here I'm an older woman. My God, I feel terrible for those young women. It's awful.
You felt that the moment you walked in? I didn't realize
that. He was awful.
Yeah. And you shared that with Bill, and he still continued to spend time with him?
Any of the questions remaining about what Bill's relationship there was, those are for Bill to answer.
Okay.
But I made it very clear how I felt about him.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, it was one of the reasons she made it clear it wasn't just that. But, yeah, knowing that your partner is associated with that kind of man, and especially when you've only met Jeffrey Epstein once, it says a lot, doesn't it, there? It says a lot there. It's, take this with a pinch of salt, but I want to be absolutely clear. Israel are in the Epstein files. That is one thing that is certain here. Tucker Carlson said Israel is implemented in the Epstein files, and they will never allow the full release of them.
Do you agree with Candace Owens that the reason we are not going to see the client list is because Israel is implicated?
Israel is implicated. I'm just going to say that.
But what would Israel have to do with Epstein?
I mean, the former Prime Minister of Israel, Ehud Barak, lived at Epstein's townhouse for years. I mean, the allegation is that Epstein was running a blackmail operation against powerful people, where they would be videotaped having outside of marriage or illegally with underage women, and that information would be used against them to get them to comply with whatever request that government wanted them to comply with. I think it's absolutely fair to ask, to what extent was Epstein involved in a foreign intelligence operation on our soil? This is our country. This country doesn't belong to any foreign country. Okay, this is our country. I was born here. I pay taxes here. So if some foreign country, I don't care if you claim it's our ally or not, is running an intel operation on my soil, I have a right to know what that was.
I think I think there may be some real truth into what Tucker Carlson just said there, even though I don't trust him whatsoever, and I think he's a scumbag there. I do think there may be some truth into that, because we know that Jeffrey Epstein there was a lot of email links between him and the former Prime Minister of Israel, a lot of them. So Israel was definitely, it definitely looked like, the relationship between Israel and the United States has definitely changed over the last several years. And I wonder how much of it was with regards to what Tucker Carlson said there, of how much blackmail and how much influence that Israel. We already know that Israel has a deep influence within United States politics, but how much of that is actually blackmail, I think, is also another question worth asking ourselves there. I definitely think there's some truth into what Tucker Carlson said there. Definitely do. Is this the last one? And then, hold on a second. Let me just check. Yeah. And then there's those. Yeah, that's the same. It's the same report. Yeah, I'm actually going to leave that report because it's kind of it's probably the same. Let me just have a look. Yeah, it's probably more on Sarah. Yeah, more on Sarah Ferguson, which we looked at earlier already. So I don't think that one's worth looking at here. Do I want to show you guys some of the most horrible videos? Oh God. Do I want to show you at least one disturbing video? Or do I want to put that on your conscience? Okay. Now, I don't know if there's any truth to this. So do take what I'm about to tell you with a pinch of salt. So this is a model from Mexico who in 2009 fled from one of Epstein's parties screaming they were eating people. They no longer seem so crazy, but the 21-year-old Gabriel Rico Torres, no one has seen her since then. Now, it's worth pointing out, where is it? Someone asked, so someone asked Grok whether it was true or not. This is what he said. The 2009 video of Gabriel Rico Jimenez's outburst outside a Mexican hotel is real, where she accused elites of cannibalism and other crimes. She was arrested and reportedly sent to a psychiatric facility, with no public sighting since. However, there's no verified evidence linking her to Epstein or his parties. A recent file release has sparked speculation, but claims remains unproven. Her story often ties to conspiracy theories and possible mental health issues. So, I don't know if that's linked to it or not. I don't think it's worth sharing. I don't think it's worth sharing because there's been nothing in these files that I have seen from people who have reported on it that links anything to cannibalism whatsoever. So, do I think this is bullshit? I think it's probably bullshit because there's no mention of it in the files. However, like I said, we haven't even seen half the files yet. So it's possible, but we haven't seen any indications that that is the case. And I hope that is not the case. God forbid on there. But yes, this woman basically is literally screaming and shouting outside that they're eating humans. I'm not going to play the footage. I'm not going to play the volume for this because it will just be uncomfortable. You can see this. I don't know where this footage is. I'm assuming this is in Epstein's house here. Here's what it says. So another disturbing video found in relation to the release of the Epstein files. It appears to be around a girl around 11 or 12 years old, dressed as a schoolgirl or a sailor. We need to see all the non-victims' names and files that the Trump administration are redacting. They are obviously covering up for some real sickos. And I just want to... And I don't know what this board is here. Flusk off or something, but yeah, it's pretty disgusting to say the least there. Like I said, I didn't want to play the sound because obviously pretty demoralized in there. Some of you guys may have already seen this footage as well. This is obviously the bizarre video of Jeffrey Epstein chasing girls around his kitchen, which was released on the Friday. This was one of the big ones that came out on social media here. Literally just chasing girls for fun. And obviously they've been redacted, so we don't know what they are. We don't know how underage they are, but clearly another very disturbing one indeed. And then there is this, and I don't know if I ever want to put myself through 8 minutes of Jeffrey Epstein's interview. I don't think it's worth putting myself through that, and I don't think it's worth putting you guys through that as well. So away from the videos, guys, I just want to share a couple of other. I just want to share some couple other headlines from different stories before we wrap up here. So this one here, I just wanted to put this up from the Associated Press here. Fact Focus: images of New York City Mayor with Jeffrey Epstein are AI generated. Here's what to know. So apparently people have been putting up AI images of Zohran Mamdani, the New York mayor, with Jeffrey Epstein. There's no link whatsoever. It's just absolute nonsense that he was linked whatsoever. If you see any images of him, it says images that show Mamdani as a child and his mother with Jeffrey Epstein and other public figures are linked to disgraced finances. The facts, the image were created with artificial intelligence. They all contain a digital watermark identifying them as such, and first appeared on a parody X account that says it creates high quality AI videos and memes. Of one of the images, Mamdani and they appear to be in front of a group photo with Maxwell, Epstein, and former President Bill Clinton, Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, and Microsoft founder Bill Gates. They seem to be posing at night on a crowded city. Mamdani looks to be preteen or a young teenager. Another supposedly shows the same group of people, minus near what appears to be a tropical setting. Epstein's pictured holding Clinton sitting in his arms, while Maxwell has his arms around Mamdani, who is slightly younger. Other AI-generated images circulating online depict Mamdani as a baby being held by Nair. She poses with Epstein, Clinton, Maxwell, and Bezos. None of Epstein's victims have publicly accused Clinton, Gates, or Bezos of being involved in his crimes. Yeah, it's, again, so this just want to make it clear that if you see any images whatsoever with Mamdani, it's definitely AI generated to try and make it appear that Mamdani was part of this, which is absolute bollocks. Like, it's just not true. It's just not true. Another links in part of the stories as well here from Al Jazeera here. Epstein's emails revealed plans to access Libya's frozen state assets. Emails sent to US sex offender Jeffrey Epstein in 2011 outlines what the sender described as financial and legal opportunities in Libya. There were also links from emails to Somaliland as well. Jeffrey Epstein has something to do with Somaliland, and you might have, and just to kind of trigger your memories as well, we know that recently Israel has officially recognized the state of Somaliland, even though there's a bit there, even though most countries don't recognize that. I thought that was quite interesting timing as well. So, and as I said, we know that Israel have links in the Epstein files as well. So yeah, it shows an association of the late US financier outlined plans to pursue access to Libya's frozen state assets, including seeking potential support from former British and Israeli intelligence officials. The tranche of documents released by the US Justice Department, including an email sent to Epstein, outlines what senders describe as financial and legal opportunities linked to political and economic uncertainty in Libya at the time. The email dates to July 2011, was sent several months ago after a UN-backed uprising against the Libyan then President Muammar Gaddafi began. Gaddafi was killed, obviously, by Libyan rebels in October the same year. According to the email, about $80 billion in Libyan funds were believed to be frozen internationally, including roughly $32.4 billion in the US. It is estimated that the real number is somewhere between 3 to 4 times this number in sovereignty, stolen and misappropriated assets, the email states. And that if we can identify, recover 5 to 10% of these monies and receive 10% to 25% compensation, we're talking about billions of dollars. So yeah, essentially, yeah, so in some way, shape or form, Epstein was involved in what happened in Syria. I know, insane. The sender also said certain former members of British Foreign Intelligence Service, MI6, and Israel's External Intelligence Agency Mossad experience a willingness to assist in efforts to identify and recover stolen assets. The email refers to expectations that Libya would need to spend at least 100 billion in the future on reconstruction and economic recovery here. But the real carrot is whether we can become the go-to guys, because the plan they spend at least 100 billion the next year to rebuild the country and jumpstart the economy, the email said. The email characterized Libya as a country with significant energy reserves with strong literary rates. Factors that could be advantageous for financial and legal initiatives. It also said that discussions have been held with some international law firms about working on a contingency fee basis. Yes, so again, another one, Jeffrey Epstein linked there as well. And obviously this one here. Son of Norway's crown prince stands trial for rape as the royal family are in the spotlight over the Epstein emails. So usually private royal families under intense public scrutiny this week as the rape trial of crown prince stepson begins days after tranche of newly released Epstein files appeared to link the crown prince to the late sex offender. So Maris Bond, Holby 29, appears at the Oslo District Crown Court today. For the start of the trial, expected to last 7 weeks, and what experts say is an unprecedented amount of moment for the royal family, known for its projection of sustainability. He denies the allegation of rape. Yeah, apparently, where's the part about Epstein? The trial follows the latest release on Friday, which includes the trial follows the latest release on Friday, including more Epstein files by the U.S. Justice Department, which includes scores of emails between Epstein and the Crown Prince Mehdi Mawek. Ahead of the trial, Holby was arrested on further charges Sunday evening. Yeah, threats and whatnot there. So, yeah. So you've also got that link there, just to kind of add to them as well. I don't have it here, but obviously, like I mentioned, Macron as well. I did try to find a headline news article on Macron with Macron's email as well. I don't know how much of that French opposition can stick that on Macron, because in terms of French politics there, but obviously he's not widely popular in France anyway, to be fair. So I did have an opinion piece as well, but I don't think it's worth really sharing any more than what we've already gone through, because we've gone through quite a fair bit here tonight, guys. Do you have a place where we can show you the stuff we can find you help with the case, says Cold? Yeah, Discord. There's a free Discord link. What I'm actually thinking of, there's a Discord link. If you go onto the Discord there, what I might actually do is I might actually create an Epstein file tab on Discord for people to add anything relating to the Epstein files. I think that might be worth doing there as well. Don't risk getting demonetized again, said Matthew Von Erich. There's nothing that I've shared that hasn't already been shared, and this live stream is not monetized as well. So they can't copyright strike me if I'm not monetized. I don't monetize my live streams. That's why I had a one super chat goal for today, and sadly, despite going over an hour and a half, I did not achieve it, unfortunately. Isn't Grok Elon Musk AI? That is correct there. Yep, that is correct there. Trump acts like he's never knew Epstein Maxwell, like the block up the road psychologically tells us he's guilty. Now I'm wondering if the ICE agents are not capturing the children and sending them to Trump's own personal island. No, I don't think they. I don't think the two. I don't think what ICE is doing and what happened with the Epstein files are linked. I don't think so. I don't think so. Just been off the entire concepts of money, says Monty Von Erich as well there. Do you know Maxwell's dad's history? I do not, David King. I do not. No, I do not. Right, guys. So we've gone an hour and a half long, and no, normally I would end with a funny note or something, but considering what we were talking about today, it was kind of brutal. You know, this was brutal to talk about. For those who stuck to at the start of this all the way to the end, I want to say thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I know it wasn't easy to talk about this kind of thing, but I'm kind of glad that I've spent this live stream talking about it, sharing as much as I've got on it to you guys as well. I hope you found it informative in some way, shape, or form about how damning this all is as well. So that being said, I don't know how much of Epstein I'm going to cover tomorrow on the watch along live stream. I may end up having to cover more of it again, but it depends. Like I said, this was episode 100 of Global News, so there will not be another live stream of this series anymore unless I do it on a Thursday afternoon or evening or something like that. But I'm not going to be doing live streams on Tuesday afternoon, evenings anymore going forward, because I just have too much going on work-wise. But I was originally going to do other news stories, guys, but I just thought the more on this I looked at, the more I just kind of like, in the last 40 minutes, 40 minutes before starting the live stream, I made the decision just to make it all about this. So, but I hope you found the information informative in any way, shape, or form. And all I can say is obviously to everyone who has suffered in any way, shape, or form throughout all this, I can only offer my condolences, and it really ain't going to make much of a difference. But it's been I really can't comprehend how people are feeling after for going through what they have gone through there. But thank you guys again. Enjoy the rest of your evenings, whatever you guys are doing. And yeah, like I said, do check out Breaking Points on YouTube from their analysis they did yesterday on this, because I think it was very, very good as well. And yeah, we'll be talking about this. I'm sure we'll be talking about this again, guys. But if you can do yourself a favor, thank you, Viper Scott, for the £2 super chat. Very interesting listening live while driving. Well, it wasn't completely all for nothing then. Thank you for the £2 super chats. It wasn't completely all for nothing. No, honestly, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that. Yeah, guys, if you can on your way out, please hit that like button. Please share this across social media if you can. Consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. Like I said, you can check out additional content on Rumble and Patreon. There is free content on both platforms you can check out as well on there. And like I said, you can join the Discord community for free. And what I'll do is, like I said, I'm going to add a tab for Epstein files for people, anyone to add any more additional information, you can do there as well. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.